Today, Carl and Nick are joined by draft analyst Erick Trickel to review some of the recent college bowl game results from a draft perspective, as well as each give their own individual all-draft eligible offense. You are listening to the Huddle Up Draft Podcast.
Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast, your go-to show for all things Broncos.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up. Draft style, of course. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me, as always, we have my co-host, Nick, no pants, no problems, Kendell. And we are joined by regular guest, Mile High Huddle senior draft analyst, Erick, the GOAT of all things draft and Broncos Trickel, to break down the recent showings from prospects in the bowl games. Gentlemen, how was the holidays for you?
This is why we shouldn't give Erick the ability to edit the document.
Did he write that?
Yes. Oh, I mean. Well, he had no problems, as I always say. Yeah, I had the no problems part. The GOAT of all things, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I like Erick, but I don't think I would put that in there. I can see that he didn't give you a nickname, which is, I feel like we left you out. That's a little bit rude.
That's okay.
Maybe it was a Christmas gift to do that. The holidays were good, busy. I'm glad that the bowl games were mostly exciting, and I'm glad that this season has mercifully ended because it was a long one, a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs, and ready to talk about how we can make this team better and get the Broncos back in the playoffs.
My holidays were pretty good. I'm just glad 2017's over. Spent a lot of time with my family, and I'm going to continue doing that over, I think, the next week. Can't remember when my nieces and nephews go back to school, but plan on spending some time with them before they do that. Holidays were great. Had a great Christmas. Spent 6 hours, not really. I think 4.5 hours opening gifts.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. But we do it. We go youngest to oldest, one gift at a time, so it takes a little bit longer.
Especially with a big group.
We don't just go hog wild and open them all real quick. So
that's how we do it down here in Iowa. Free for all.
We did that too, and we did the one gift at a time thing, and it wasn't too bad for me, but my 2-year-old, I was very impressed. She actually stayed pretty calm for it, but I can't imagine being 2 years old staring at all these presents, and they say, nope, can't open them.
Oh, it doesn't get any better. My nephew's 12 years old, and we had that issue.
I had that issue, period.
Oh, Nick. What are you, 25 years old?
I plead the fifth. So yes, I am 25.
25-year-old trapped in a 10-year-old's body? Or other way around, sorry.
I don't know which one's worse. Probably the 25-year-old in a 10-year-old's body.
There you go.
Although he could be brilliant. That'd be kind of cool. Get an early start. Anyway, we're way off the topic here. We should get going.
Well, the Huddle Up Draft Show's focus is all things pertain to your Denver Broncos as it pertains to the upcoming NFL Draft. With Nick and myself being draftaholics, we will be bringing you fresh insight and analysis each and every week from scouting reports, value, scheme, and personnel fits, and general draft-related banter. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have because we live for talking Bronco football. And you can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod. Make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of Scout.com, and an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so please take the time to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Well, boys, let's go ahead and just start with the college football playoff games that were last night. And one of them, the Rose Bowl, let's start with there because that was one of the best games. A lot of times these bowl games kind of turn into blowouts. And to see two teams go to the final wire, go into double overtime, two great organizations, just crazy. It was so much fun to watch that game.
Yeah, that was probably the best bowl game of the year. A lot of back and forth, good storylines. Both teams really deserved it. A lot of star power, too. Honestly, we talked about the star power of the Clemson-Alabama game. We'll get to that. But as far as entertainment value goes, this Oklahoma-Georgia game was the most fun I've had watching a college football game since the national championship last year.
And, of course, it's been the best bowl game of the year. There's been, 3 games of the year so far?
Yeah, there's been some good ones. But this one, the Rose Bowl, there's been some dud Rose Bowls recently, mainly thinking about Iowa getting spanked by Stanford. But this Rose Bowl, great. And I know Baker Mayfield and that energy factor brings to it as well. But Georgia has a lot of fun players as well, and a lot of those guys stepped up big. Baker Mayfield had a pretty good game up and down. I'll leave that more to Erick to talk about because I'm sure he wants to talk about it. But a couple guys that really stood out for me was the playmakers for Oklahoma. I know that we've talked a lot about Mark Andrews. Carl loves Mark Andrews, but for me, Marquise Brown and Rodney Anderson, those guys shined tremendously. Marquise Brown that dude is flipping fast. What do you have? 8 catches, 114 yards and a touchdown, long of 45. Very fun to watch. And Rodney Anderson, as much as Baker Mayfield plays point guard, that game was through him. 26 carries for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rodney Anderson is a guy that could be running back 1 in next season's draft, and Oklahoma just came short. Georgia played great. They adjusted great and got a lot of good players too.
And I would say there were so many plays where he got stuffed at the line of scrimmage and somehow just emerged from the pile. He was giving so much extra effort in that game just to really, I don't know, he was just so dynamic to watch. I was very impressed. I went to that game wanting to watch Baker Mayfield, and it became the Rodney Anderson show for sure.
Yeah, and also on the Oklahoma side, I got to say, I've been a critic of Orlando Brown Jr. I still am. I don't think he's a top 10 pick. I don't think he's a franchise left tackle like some have said, but he looked more athletic than what I had seen. He held up better than I thought he would. And if you're looking for a right tackle, especially in that power scheme, Orlando Brown is a guy that can probably make you happy in that position for a long time. That doesn't make him a top 10 pick in my book. Probably doesn't make him a top 15 pick in my book. But still, there's value there, and he's a guy that has some unique tools and traits that make him a fun one to follow going forward.
Before I get into my thoughts on the game, I just want to ask, did my joke go over your head, Nick?
Which one? I might have missed it.
About there being only a few bowl games this year since it's 2018.
Oh, yeah, it totally did. I was like, man, you're dumb. There's been a lot of bowl games of the college season, of the college football season.
That's a shame.
I apologize. I was focused on delivering good content to our listeners instead of making puns, but whatever,
Hey, it was a good joke. Anyways, as I often talk about, I don't really like watching college football live. To me, a lot of the games that I watch, they're blowouts and they end up being boring to watch. This game, as soon as I started watching it, I couldn't stop. It kept me glued to the TV. It was fantastic. The back and forth, knowing what happened in the first half, because I was following it on Twitter, and how Oklahoma basically dominated against that Georgia team, and then watching Georgia make their adjustments and come back. That is football. The adjustments, the back and forth, close games that come down to the wire. It was second overtime, and it came down to a blocked field goal for Georgia to win.
Yeah,
and then Georgia got the ball back, and they just and they ended up running it in for a touchdown. But blocking that field goal was basically it. It basically guaranteed them the win, unless Oklahoma turned around and blocked a field goal if they managed to hold them to it. A lot of players really stood out. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, his first half, I went back and watched it today. I thought his first half was really good. It was about as good as you can get. The second half there were some rough spots. There's no denying that, and it was all highlighted by the interception. He just overthrew. That was just a really bad throw.
3 guys around that receiver. That was a bad one.
Yeah, trying to make something happen, trying to force it, just really, really bad. But he bounced back. Not the following drive, but the drive after. He had 2 beautiful, perfect NFL throws. One to get them close to the end zone, and then one for the touchdown. They were gorgeous. Those were the type of throws that I want in a quarterback, and there's a couple other quarterbacks in the NFL or in the draft who can make those throws. I just liked watching him bounce back. I questioned the play calling though, because once it came down to it, they took the ball out of his hands. They kept running that run pass option that just wasn't effective for most of the game, especially after the first half. Orlando Brown, as he said, he looked a lot more athletic, but that Oklahoma defender, their edge rusher, I'm not going to try to say his name.
Ogbanya Okoronkwo.
Him. I see a lot of talk about him not being an edge rusher in the NFL. Stop it. Just stop it. He is an edge player in the NFL. Put him in a 3-4 as a rush linebacker and let him play. Do I think he's a starter caliber there? I don't know. I really have to go back and watch a few more games of him to really say that. But from what I have seen of him, he is an edge rusher. Maybe he's probably that third guy that subs in, but he's an edge. And that running back for Oklahoma, Anderson, I really like him. I can't wait to see more of him. Georgia side of the ball, those 2 running backs, I'm so sick of people saying, Sonny's better than Nick and Nick's better than Sonny. Like, they're both good, so stop it. I like them both. They do different things. They're really good. That freshman quarterback, I can't wait to see him progress. Only thing that I really noticed that he has to work on is staring down receivers.
Yeah.
Struggles to come off that first read. But Smith, that Georgia linebacker, I want him on my team. He can do it all. There are some issues with his game coming downhill, but you can fix that by putting him a little bit, by working him around and getting him more speed coming up, more momentum. And there's still room on his frame to add a few pounds. There's been talks about what he weighs at and what he's been playing at. I've heard he's been playing about 235, 240. A lot of places have him listed at about 220, so there's some discrepancy there. But he still has a frame that you can add more weight, and his sideline-to-sideline speed's amazing, and he can cover extremely well. In modern-day NFL, he's the type of linebacker you really want.
Yeah, I really like what I saw from Roquan Smith, especially in the second half. He really was all over the field, made a number of good tackles. He didn't – sometimes when they ran at him, he had some issues, but Oklahoma has a monstrous offensive line, and when they're running downhill, they're hard to stop. It's a reason what did they put up? 48 points? I know overtime was in there, but still. Like, that's insane. Also like what I see from Lorenzo Carter, edge rusher for Georgia, 6'5", very high recruit and bendy, athletic. He's a bit more of the he's not a guy that they send on rushes every time. He can kind of play that man defender, zone defender as well, where he can drop because he's long and athletic in that regard as well. I want to see him add more pass rush moves, but he's somebody that I think could blow up at the combine and be a top 40 pick. And then there was a guy as well, he's a sophomore for Georgia, that was just playing all over the field. What was his name? He was killing it yesterday. I thought I had his name in here. I guess not. He was number 52 for Georgia. But anyway, he was killing it. And I really liked what I saw also from both running backs. You got to love Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's more of a banger, and Michel's more of a dynamic downhill guy. And I was interested. Carl, Eric and I have been talking a lot, but watching that game, what did you get a feel for the Georgia wide receivers, specifically Javon Wims? I thought both Wims and the other wide receiver at Georgia actually made some pretty good plays. And I know they're not really much of a passing team, so they don't get displayed as much, but potentially some under-the-radar guys that could be picked up. Terry Godwin's the other one, number 5 and number 6.
It was kind of up and down for me with watching them. They showed inconsistent hands kind of early in that game, a couple drops that I saw that both teams had some drops that really hurt some drives early on for them. And route running wise, they were decent, not great. They have some good speed, some good hand. There's some good things about them, but they have a lot of work to do, is what I would say. They're not anybody that would be looking at to all of a sudden rise up draft boards and surprise people. But again, they're nice complement pieces. That whole offense flows through Michel and Chubb, though. And Fromm, good quarterback, put it in some good spots for their wide receivers. Like I said, just a couple drops that have me a little bit worried, but same with Oklahoma and some of their plays that they were making. Like I said, just decent. Nothing too exciting for me.
Fromm, true freshman. Can we just mention how poised he was and how he kept his composure?
Absolutely.
Especially with how he started, because he wasn't accurate when the game first started. He was overthrowing guys. He was looking a little jittery, but he settled into that game and just cool as ice.
Exactly. And that, as a true freshman, that is outstanding to see. That was my thought. It's just great to see that from a true freshman, especially at that high of a level, working on bringing the team back from the down years that Georgia's had against Oklahoma, who's been a powerhouse. That is exceptional to see from a true freshman. His
ability to do pre-snap reads as well, that he was running through there, run checks, even pass checks, with somewhat of a pretty loud crowd. Both Oklahoma and Georgia fans were loud. So, I was really impressed, and he's somebody that has a star next to him going forward, and he's only a true freshman, so we won't even get to talk about him in next year's version of this podcast, but definitely one that if there's Vegas taking odds for potential first picks in 2020, he's got to be up there. And then moving on to the next game, the team that Georgia's going to be playing in the national championship, Alabama versus Clemson. And this game turned out to be kind of a snooze compared to the Rose Bowl. Alabama won 24-6, but they were pretty dominant the entire game. The Alabama defense, they looked like they were on a mission to make up for last year, and not having a guy like Deshaun Watson who can sling it across the yard really hurt this Clemson offense, and Kelly Bryant just wasn't able to get it done enough, and Bama won. But, man, you got to start off, for me, Alabama, Deron Payne. What a game from the defensive tackle, nose tackle. He's a big boy. He's probably going to be a first-round pick at defensive line. Right now I have a first-round grade on him. He's better at that one-tech, zero-tech, but athletic, controls those gaps really well, can push the pocket, can get after the quarterback as well. You're not primary interior pass rusher, but his ability to control gaps, eat blocks, win at the point of attack consistently is very, very strong. And he's a guy, he showed his athleticism as well. Interception and that touchdown reception. So going to give the big guy some love. Deron Payne was my MVP for this game, and I love seeing a defensive tackle making an impact like that.
Yeah, this is another one of those games where you just see how good this running back class is going to be. A guy like Damian Harris. Oh my goodness. I was so impressed by his quickness. Just that first step. I was telling Nick earlier today when I was watching this game, just his ability to do the one cut and just go. You put him in a zone blocking scheme and just let this guy kind of run towards the edge and then boom, just cut it up right up the field. Oh my goodness, I think it could be dangerous. And I said the guy that I kept thinking of watching him was Clinton Portis. Clinton Portis is faster. He's a little bit more shiftier, but Harris has a little bit more strength. But just that first step and go ability and just get down the field and make a big play. Like I said, I was so impressed by him. Bo Scarborough, he's not a guy that I want. He was okay, but I would say behind that Alabama offensive line that was winning the line of scrimmage, I don't see this guy as being anything special. He's kind of just another guy, a guy that you're going to put on your team, and he'll be a depth guy that you put in there every once in a while. But no, Damian Harris, he is just lightning. I love watching him play.
He's not just lightning, too. He runs with pretty low pad level and is a good pass blocker. I really like him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a strong pre-draft process if he moved up into the top end of day 2. I don't think he's dynamic enough for day 1, but I think he looks like a future NFL starter, and he's going to be a productive one, in my opinion. And then I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some of these other guys on Alabama. I mean, just so much talent. You know, you got Jonah Williams, who's not draft eligible, but might be the best tackle in college football right now. Calvin Ridley, we've talked about him before, but Erick and especially Carl, you like this guy a lot. Raekwon Davis isn't draft eligible, but man, next year's defensive line class looks incredible. Raekwon Davis was 99. He was the guy that Minkah Fitzpatrick told him to put up or shut up, essentially. And Raekwon, 6'7", 310 pounds. He's somewhere between Buckner and Tuitt, where he has that size and that length, but I think he's a little bit more athletic than Tuitt is. So he's somebody to look forward to next season. I think he could be a first-round pick in the next draft. And then you got, obviously, those defensive backs at Alabama. They really controlled this game. They made it impossible for Kelly Bryant, finishing 18 for 36 on the day with 2 interceptions. Just a terrible game for that passing offense for Clemson. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick, Rashaan Evans, and that linebacker. Ronnie Harrison played solid. And Levi Wallace, also another guy who had a good game. Carl, you were messaging me about him.
Yeah, he had a tough matchup, obviously, going against Deion Kane. And he played physical with him. He messed with their timing. He was a great tackler. I saw him read about 2 or 3 different screen passes where he was coming downhill, making plays. And I was very impressed with him. He had very good hip flip when he needed to get down the field. And on those jump balls, he was right there ready to punch it out. I don't know. I was very, very impressed with his work. And another guy there, Minkah Fitzpatrick, most likely going to be a top 10 pick. This is what I had to say about his game. It was amazing and terrible all at the same time. It was amazing in the fact that he had incredible instincts to read plays. He was coming downhill before any other player on a lot of like the screen passes or the quick passes. Where I say that he had a terrible game was he was terrible at tackling. He did not break down. I think in the first half I counted about 4 or 5 plays that he should have had a tackle for loss, and he missed every one of the tackles. Now, he slowed down the guy for other guys to come and make the play. But for a top 10 pick, I want a guy that I feel like I can trust to finish that play, to be a finisher. That's what you like to see in those kind of guys. So just a little disappointed in his game for this one. It could have been an epic game if he had been a much better tackler.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying about Fitzpatrick for a while now. I've gone over every single game of Bama's, and every single time I'm writing down questionable tackling. He sits there and his instincts are fantastic. His instincts are top 5 player worthy. It's just the tackling. You want a safety who can be reliable there. And I don't trust him. I don't think he is that reliable. There were 3 times where he came screaming down and hit the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage, and the ball carrier ends up picking up 1 yard or none. And he's hitting them 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You got to finish. In the NFL, that is not okay. It's not okay at the college level either. If you're getting back there and you have a chance to make the tackle for a loss, you have to pin it down. You have to make it. You have to finish. His instincts are great, though. And I agree. He played a great game, but a terrible game at the same time. All my concerns for him are still there. He didn't do anything to answer any of my concerns about his game. He's still not a top 15 borderline top 15 player for me. Raekwon Davis, Daron Payne, I always love watching Bama's defensive line. They're big, they're good, they're talented, they're nasty. Don't always translate to the NFL, but for college level, they're so much fun to watch. Davis next year, I'm excited to see. I hope he really continues on of that putting up and shutting up kind of thing. Payne, I'm excited to see his play going forward. I think he's best as a 0-1 tech, but you can move him out in certain packages as a 5 tech and use him as a 3 tech, and he's not stuck as a pure nose tackle. As for the running backs, I like Harris, don't like Bo. Calvin Ridley is fantastic. Jalen Hurts, I am not a fan of. And that middle linebacker that Crimson Tide has,
Rashaan Evans.
Yeah, Rashaan Evans. He's the number 2 linebacker in this class, and his play is different from that of Smith's, but he's still really good in his own right. He's a more true middle linebacker, that true Mike that you want. Stout against the run, can handle certain coverage packages. Not quite as athletic, but he's that true Mike. And I can't wait for Bama versus Georgia because you get to see Smith and Evans on the same field. Not at the same time, but they're on the same field, and you can really get a comparison of the two against two pretty good units from each other with that Bama offense and Georgia offense. On the Clemson side of the ball, Deion Kane, a lot of people are high on him. I have to go back and watch more tape, but what I've seen so far, and I've watched 3 games counting this bowl game, I didn't really care for it. Mitch Hyatt, I want to see a lot more from. I didn't like the Kelly Bryant, the quarterback for Clemson whatsoever. This was a game that I didn't like either quarterback. I don't think they have a future in the NFL as a quarterback. Farrell, though, I really like his play, but more and more I'm starting to slide off of him being a first-round pick. I think his production will make it so. I don't think his talent is first-round worthy, though.
Farrell going up against Jonah Williams. I think Jonah Williams can get the win in that mark, and that's tape that they're going to be referencing about talking about Jonah Williams being a top 5, top 10 player next year, I'm sure, because he handled Farrell pretty well. I was disappointed in general at the whole defensive line for Clemson. Probably kind of like the Broncos this season, good defensive unit, but when the offense is playing this poorly, it kind of gets away from you. They still have talent there, though. Christian Wilkins will probably be a first-round pick this year. He's borderline for me. He's a good athlete, but he's not as much of a football player right now. And they also have the guy who's been getting a lot of hype, 6'5", 350 pounds, Dexter Lawrence. But he did a good job eating blocks, but Bama still, for the most part, did what they wanted to, but it mostly came from that defense. They got some okay offensive linemen on there. You got Mitch Hyatt and Tyrone Crowder, but both those guys, I thought for the most part, were getting beat up on by that Bama defensive line. That front 7, classic Nick Saban Bama, that defense was too dominant. The secondary played their spots correctly, good discipline, and they just eventually turnovers and things fell downhill for Clemson, and the game was over before you knew it. So not that surprised. Bama deserved to be in the playoff, and it's too bad for the Big Ten, who had a good bowl season, but because Ohio State, beating up on USC, we'll talk about that here soon. But Big Ten had a good season, but definitely the best 2 teams, I think, are the ones that are moving on. But Carl, I know that you like Deion Kane a little bit. We talked about him a bit today. I don't think he's a first-round player, but he does have some talent that make him a second or third rounder. In my opinion, potentially, it's always going to depend on how he tests and everything. A little bit slender, not the best attacking the football, but has some athletic tools. Tell me why you like Deion Kane and what you saw from this game that confirms some of that.
I like the size compared to the athleticism ratio that he has. I was never a big Williams fan last year. I never saw him as a top 15 pick in the draft. Most people, I think, if they've listened to our draft podcast, have kind of caught on. I'm more of those, I like those quick receivers like Ridley. And so I'm actually higher on Kane than I was Williams last year, just in the fact that, one, Kane isn't expected to go as high. So you're getting more that second, third, fourth round area when you're talking about this kid. And I think the production compared to where you draft him, that's why I'm a little bit higher on him. But I just think he's a guy he's just starting to figure out some of his potential. You can't look at college production and say one way or the other of how a player is going to be. Look at Demaryius Thomas for the Broncos. If you look at his stats from college, you would sit there and say, why in the world was this guy a first-round pick? Well, because the Broncos obviously saw some traits in him that they said, hey, we can develop this guy and make him a top-tier wide receiver. He has that speed, he has that athleticism, he has that height, he has that strength, all of that you like. You just have to develop him into something. And I feel like that's something, if he goes to the right team, Deion Kane is one of those guys you can develop, and he can be a better pro than he was a college wide receiver.
Absolutely. And do you have anything else for this Clemson side?
Nothing much. Like everybody else has been kind of saying, a little bit disappointed. And I thought this defensive line would really take over this game for Clemson, and really just I had Clemson winning this game, mostly because this defensive line. I just thought they would own the line of scrimmage, and I just nothing. Just really didn't see it. The guy I thought I had the best game of the four was Austin Bryant, and he was the one guy who was getting a little bit of pressure throughout the game. But otherwise, Farrell, yeah, he was handled pretty much the entire game by Jonah Williams. I think he had one big play, and that was it. And Dexter Lawrence, he got some push, but nothing like we've seen over the entire season. And Christian Wilkins definitely did not look like a first-round pick in this game.
Yep, and that just spells another SEC championship game here for the NCAA title. And we haven't had that since Bama played LSU a few years ago. Or I guess it was more than a few years ago now, but that was the last one that I can remember. And I don't know. I think Bama will probably be favored in this match. I would bet money that Alabama is going to be favored in this match, and I would be surprised if they didn't win. They have a great team, and I think Georgia, while they are great, they don't have the same defensive talent that Alabama has, and Alabama will do enough to take away that run game just enough and put it on that the freshman quarterback Fromm. And if Fromm can win this, tip your cap, that true freshman. But I'm not going against Saban losing to a true freshman quarterback.
It's hard to ever vote against Alabama to win a big game just because they've been in so many. All these guys are, most of them are in their second, third, fourth year and being with Alabama, and no group of players have had more experience in big games, or at least watching in a big game, knowing what the atmosphere is going to be like. And I just think that could be one thing that really plays against Georgia is what happens when they get into this atmosphere of, are they going to be a little overwhelmed? Like you said, having a freshman quarterback, that's a huge, huge stage to all of a sudden every eye is on you. There's nothing else going on. That's a lot to put on a guy. But I love these two running backs for Georgia. They're going to have to absolutely dominate. That's going to be tough against this Alabama front seven.
Yeah, I got to give the edge to Alabama in this one. The freshman quarterback, we saw him be poised and composed against Oklahoma, but Alabama's a whole nother animal. This defensive line, they're big, they're mean, they're athletic. All these guys, they know what it means to be there. They know what it means to be on that field. They know the atmosphere. They know all this stuff. They're consistent. They do their jobs. And I saw Oklahoma kind of beat up on the Georgia offensive line quite a bit, and this Alabama defensive line is a lot better than Oklahoma's. I see a really rough game for Fromm, and they're going to have to rely on Michelle and Chubb, but I don't see Alabama letting them get really carried away and taking over the game. And I can see Bama dominating this one from start to finish.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Don't even tune in. No, I'll still be tuning in Monday because there's a lot of these good guys, and no preview this week for those games because, well, we spent 3.5 hours previewing the games before. So if you're curious about some of these guys, you can go back to that one and check it out for Bama and Georgia. But Bama looks like a team that's going to win again. Unfortunately, if you're not a Bama fan, they're kind of like the Patriots of college football. But, there's a team out there that maybe next year could challenge them. This team that won the Cotton Bowl in pretty convincing fashion. I'm talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes of the Big Ten. Big Ten was almost undefeated. I'm definitely going to hype them up because I'm an Iowa fan and I'm going to live vicariously through Ohio State and other Big Ten teams' successes if I can during the bowl season. And normally the Big Ten gets curb stomped in the bowl season, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, they really took it to USC. Ohio State has a lot of NFL talent that's on their team right now. We talked about it in the preview one. That the USC Ohio State preview took, half an hour just for those two teams for a non-playoff game. Insane. It's probably because it was the first one, and Carl and I like to talk a lot. But man, Ohio State, good job all around from their team. Weber and J.K. Dobbins at the running back position had a good game. You had J.T. Barrett playing typical point guard for an Ohio State game. Not an NFL quarterback, but a guy that does what Urban Meyer wants him to do, and it's effective because that defense and the weapons they have around are good. Paris Campbell looked good. I'm not sure if he's coming out, but he's kind of that H-back wide receiver type. Ohio State offensive line. Billy Price looks like a first-round pick to me at center. Can play some guard as well, but really, really technical. Probably one of the best centers from Ohio State. Probably the best center at Ohio State since Nick Mangold. So there's a name for you, a good center for a long time. And I think, again, a first-round pick at center, that's pretty good player for center position because that's not a position that's valued so much in the draft. And then a guy that really impressed me on the offensive side of Ohio State that I'm floored that he's not invited to the Senior Bowl is the left tackle for Ohio State, Jamarco Jones. He's not the most technical guy. He plays with sometimes high pad level, can keep his hands low, and doesn't always win that inside push with his hands when he first makes contact. But as far as athleticism and length go, I think Jamarco Jones has a chance to be a pretty good starting tackle in the NFL. I think he could be he's not a first-round pick in my opinion unless he blows up the combine, but has the tools where I think somebody's going to take a chance on him, and he might make an impact year one at the tackle position.
OSU, I mean, this was one of the more dominant games to watch it. The score, to me, honestly, maybe was not as close as it actually was. And I mean, Ohio State just dominated this game pretty much from the beginning. USC stayed in it a little bit just because some big plays happened. But oh my goodness, it was just, it was crazy. That defensive line was just an animal. Sam Hubbard, Nick Bosa, all those guys. It was just, they destroyed this USC offensive line. I mean, it was pathetic. It'd make Bronco fans happy with the offensive line that we had this past year. That should tell you something. But yeah, Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, they really never had any kind of chance in this one to be playmakers. They still made a couple plays here and there. I think this is Nick, you said it best, I think on Twitter earlier was it today?
I think so, yeah.
That you were talking about Sam Darnold, that this wasn't a game that would change your mind. If you don't like Sam Darnold, there was plenty in this game that would secure your thought on that. If you like Sam Darnold, there was plenty to secure why you like Sam Darnold. He had kind of like Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had some plays that were just outstanding that just make you go, oh my goodness, how did he just do that? He had one throw, a deep play down the right sideline, that he had maybe a few inches either way for that play to actually work. And it was perfect timing. It was perfect spot. It was just incredible. Tight window throw, defender right on the guy. And it just came in. They talk about it with quarterbacks. Guys can throw it deep, but the guys who are the best at the deep throws are the ones that can get the air underneath it for a wide receiver to be able to run underneath it. And it just kind of drops straight down right into their hands. And Sam Darnold showed that ability. And there were some other throws where he showed escapability and to be able to make a great throw on the run. But like I said, then he shows all of the negative qualities that make a lot of people say he should go back. His footwork was not great. His windup ended up leading to, I would say, a fumble.
It did.
Yeah. He had other decisions that you're just like, what in the world were you thinking? Throwing into triple, quadruple coverage. He had one throw where he's actually just trying to throw it away, and he kept it in play, and a guy almost picked it off, should have picked it off. So again, you see the good and you see the terrible with him. And it's just a matter of, you got to get this guy with the right coaching staff. You're going to have to get this guy working on some basics of the position. But he's also shown he's a guy that's willing to work. I was watching the Sports Science where they were showing just how much he has sped up his release from last year to this year. So again, just a guy that's willing to work on the things to get better as a quarterback. But again, he's got some red flags that are going to make people either really, really excited or really, really hesitant to ever draft this kid.
Yeah, Darnold played up and down. He had some plays out of the pocket, that beautiful touch, throwing guys open, which is something that is hard. You see guys running systems and putting up stats, but they're not asked to make too many NFL throws. And they have the RPOs and tunnel screens and everything, but you see Darnold, you see Rosen, you see Mayfield throw with anticipation, and that's something that really separates these guys. And I could see the Broncos taking Darnold if he's there. I could see him skipping him because he's definitely the potential where if he's not careful with the football and dirty with his footwork, and also a little bit of an awkward release, he has a little bit of Blake Bortles to his game. I think that's the low side for Darnold, but he also has that upside. And a guy that if he does come out, which I'm not sure he will, if he should, I think he would do well going back. But there's some talk that the USC offensive staff isn't the best for developing him, and he'd probably get more coming to the NFL and playing underneath NFL coaching and everything like that. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot that can happen between now and the draft, but definitely interesting. And you hit on it. That Ohio State defensive line just absolutely beat the crud out of USC up front. Yeah, Nick Bosa looks like a top 3 pick next year. I think that Sam Hubbard's a first-round pick this year at edge. Then you got Draymond Jones, a defensive tackle who's an interior pass rusher type that has size and length and burst. So they're winning with 3-man fronts. And when you're winning up front and you're getting pressure consistently with 3 or 4-man fronts, quarterback's going to have a long day, and that's what happened. It got out of control quickly for USC. And USC did have some good play from some of their defenders. I saw Cam Smith and Rasheem Green and Uchenna Nwosu make some plays as well, but I think they kept USC in it for the most part as well. I mean, it was only 24-7, but up front, that Ohio State defensive line just overwhelmed USC, and it was that Darnold couldn't do enough to make up for how bad that USC offensive line was getting beat up.
With all the talk on Darnold, I'm just going to say one thing about it, and it's just kind of reiterating stuff that you said. This game showed Sam Darnold's big potential, his big potential to be a bust, and his big potential to be something. As for Ohio State, that offensive line they controlled the game. Jamarco Jones, he actually showed me a little bit more than I had, and I'm can't wait to dig deeper onto some of his other tape that I haven't gotten to. Billy Price, I like quite a bit in that second round, maybe third. He's a center guard type. That defensive line of Ohio State, they're like Alabama. There's just a lot of talent there. And they are pretty consistent with the talent they get from their defensive line. The Ohio State linebackers, I thought they looked kind of impressive. I can't remember which one of the three it was, but one of them stood out more than the others. Trying to remember which one. I don't remember. I'd have to look over my notes, and I don't have them with me.
I think it was Booker.
I think
Booker's
so.
Booker's big and long, and he kind of plays more of that coverage outside guy, but they put him inside, and he can move for his size. I'm impressed. I would not be surprised if he killed it at the combine and rose up boards, because he is apparently just one of those athletic monsters.
Yeah, I think that's who it was, but I can't remember. I don't want to say for sure without having my notes with me. As for USC, some guys on that defensive side of the ball, they stood out a little bit, but I was actually disappointed with that offense. Against Ohio State's defense, they had a really rough time. Jones, there was one run play where I came away really questioning his vision, and he had some space to the outside, and he cuts it back to where basically a free defender's come in. And it really didn't sit well with me seeing that, because in every other game that I've watched with him, his vision's normally been great. And so I see that, and it's like, was he just following the play called so well that it just raises a little question of his vision. But this game wasn't as close as the score dictates. I think Ohio State pretty much controlled it. USC made just enough plays to keep it from getting really out of hand. I can't wait to see what happens with these teams going forward. Sam Darnold, I mentioned on him, he should return. But if he does return or enters the pros, can't wait to see what happens with him. This was a good game, but a bad game to watch at the same time. There's a lot of impressive plays, a lot of impressive performances from players, but the score and how the product on the field just was kind of just not so entertaining.
Yeah, and I got to say, Deontay Burnett, Carl, good call, man. I mean, it's just one game, but he probably was one of the least clutch players on the field. Fumbles, not running great routes, and just a terrible, terrible game from Deontay Burnett. Sam Darnold, he has some wide receivers out there that made some plays, but Burnett, his draft-eligible one, not a great game.
This is what I would recommend to people. Go back and watch that interception, that pick six by Darnold. That throw was not all his fault. It was a bad read. It was not the greatest throw or anything like that. But Deontay Burnett is also to blame for that. He ran one of the worst slant routes I've ever seen. He completely rounded it off. You could tell he didn't want to get hit because he knew guy was coming down the field. It was terrible. That one's partly on Burnett. And that's what I've seen all year. He has those times where he'll go out and make those great catches. If you watch his highlight reel, you're going to come away and say, this guy is incredible. Because he will. He'll make some really, really tough catches. He'll make a diving catch here and there. But for the most part, he is a guy that is just so inconsistent. You just can't trust him as a quarterback that he's going to be where you want him to be. I've seen him sometimes have some hesitation. I talked about this in the preview, so I shouldn't go into this too much. But again, this is a great game to show just all the things that I've seen wrong with this kid and why I wouldn't take him until 6th, 7th round of the draft.
Yeah, definitely not a guy that I think very highly of going forward, but I'd like to move on to the next game if that's okay. But moving on, we have the Fiesta Bowl, where Penn State defeated Washington 35-28. This was a pretty fun game back and forth, and we didn't see, just for how much they run the football. Barkley, I thought they could have had him in there more. They did a lot of backup running backs as well, but Barkley, man, he had a phenomenal game, and potentially the first overall pick in this draft. I know that probably should be a quarterback, but Barkley, I mean, he is just absolutely phenomenal. And Eric, you told us some information about how fast. There are some rumors that how fast he ran without his pads this offseason.
There's been some rumors floating around that during a summer practice or spring practice, he ran a 40 without his pads on, and it was 4.04 or something like that. And then he ran it with pads on, and it was 4.27, I want to say.
At 230 pounds, potentially.
Yeah, more. This kid is ridiculously fast. Can't wait to see his 40 at the combine. I want to see how true that rumor is. A lot of people that I've talked to, they're not expecting that fast because college 40s that they run, because they often have a lot of players run it, are very wrong. That stopwatch isn't the best thing to use, things like that. But there are a lot of rumors that he will have the fastest 40 time ever. So I'm just excited to see that.
Yeah, he had a great game, 18 carries for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. That 92-yard one he had, oh my gosh, I could literally hear the sound barrier breaking as he turned that corner and got upfield. So fast, just ran away from everyone. It was absolutely insane. Didn't juke anybody. He just literally pasted it. There's the edge, different speed. It was incredible. And yeah. I'm floored by this man's talent. I know you're not supposed to take a running back top of 5 in the draft, but if he's there at 5, I'm probably taking him. I mean, he's just whatever quarterback you have is going to be 10 times better if you have a guy like Barkley, where you can give it to him 20 times a game and instant offense. It's incredible.
As one scout said on that 92-yard run by Barkley, is you saw him hit 6 different gears on that run.
Oh.
He starts off slow, he gets the hole, he sees it, bursts through it, gets the edge, and continues to speed up. That run was ridiculous.
I just loved watching the safety that was the last line of defense. And he had what looked like a good angle, and then all of a sudden, like you said, he just hit that next gear, and it made the guy look like he was standing still.
Yeah, that safety, he did have the right angle. And Barkley just leaves him in the dust. Sorry, I watched that play over so many times because I'm such a huge Barkley fan. He left... Anyways... Let's just go on before I gush more about this play.
The other guy that deserves gushing from this game, you have some other guys from Penn State that played well. Deshaun Hamilton, Gesicki, Jason Kabinda, Christian Campbell, who's a cornerback that I think might be a little bit underrated. Marcus Allen and Trace McSorley actually had a pretty good game. I'm assuming he's returning next year. But on the Washington side of the ball, Vita Vea is a freak athlete. He's somebody that I was not as impressed with last season. I thought he wore down. This season, he looks to be in tad better shape. And just his movement ability at his size and the power he brings, and versatility, too. I mean, he actually has the athleticism at 6'5", 345, which is an insane size. But he has the athleticism to play 5-tech, 3-tech, 1-tech, 0-tech. I honestly like him better at a 5 and 3, where he can have a little bit more freedom to rush the passer and create. But, man, that guy, he had some run stops at Barkley, and obviously he's not going to catch Barkley from behind. If he did, it literally might cause the atmosphere to burn because something with that much mass shouldn't move that fast. And Myles Gaskin played as well also. And Washington just not... They kept it close, but not good enough to keep up with Penn State. And Jake Browning, I know that some people think that he might be an NFL quarterback, but small guy, weak arm, and I just don't see it. He maybe will play a Arena League football or Canadian League football, but NFL, yeah, no way. And Eric, I know you have some thoughts on Via as well.
I just wanted to interject about one play. They lined him up as a 5-tech, and he actually turned the corner. He got pretty close to a 45-degree angle that you see from elite edge NFL rushers, and my jaw dropped. At a guy that size, being able to turn the corner and bend like that was just fantastic to see.
Yeah, he might be one that could freak out at the combine and end up a top 15, top 10 pick. I don't know if I would take him there, but I'm hearing the Nada vibes are starting to come off, and people are starting to throw that name around more. So I'm excited to watch him going forward.
They are. There is still some concern from people that I've talked to, though, just about how used nose tackles are, because majority of teams, they don't use them more than about 40% of the time. But those teams that do, those teams that have those nose tackles that are a big part of their offense or big part of their defense, that play 75, 80, 90% of their snaps, this guy's definitely on their radar. and I can think of one team in particular that could use him, even though I like the guy that they have been using at nose tackle, and that's the Falcons. I like Grady Jarrett. I like Vea. Pairing those two together, because you can move both of them around. Like, that would be nasty. As for other players in this game, I think Hamilton, the receiver for Penn State, I think he really cemented himself as probably a third or fourth round pick for that slot specialty. I liked what I saw a lot out of him. Jasecki, dude's a freak. McSorley, I like what I saw. I want to watch him next year. I talked to a scout after this game and said that he was told to return by multiple people, and obviously he listened to it, and that next year he can raise his draft stock to probably second or third round, depending on Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield is the comparison for him. The similarities are extreme between the two, and McSorley just doesn't have some of the maturity and off-field issues. As for Washington, Dante Pettis, what were you thinking, dude? Just run out of bounds. Myles Gaskin, he looks good. I'd take him on my team. Jake Browning, go to Canadian football, go to arena football. NFL is not for you. Too big, too fast for you. Your arm's not strong enough for it. I'm sure you're a nice enough guy. I'm sure you have big dreams and want to play in the NFL. Don't want to tell you to give up, but NFL's not for you.
Carl?
You'd mentioned a guy that really impressed me in this one, and Deshaun Hamilton. I just love his foot quickness. He is a guy, they tried to do press coverage against him a few times, and it did not go well. That's something you love to see, because he's going to see that a lot in the NFL. You're going to see especially young guys, they always want to test you out to see how well you can do in the hand fighting. And his feet, he's just so quick. He gets off that and gets open in a hurry. And that's one of my favorite traits in a receiver. How quick can you get open? Because in the NFL, with how terrible offensive lines are, you have to get that ball out in a hurry. And the best offenses are the ones that have those guys that a quarterback can pretty much be throwing as soon as they hit their back foot and just trust that you're going to get open. That's what you see with Brady and Edelman. That combination is almost unfair in the NFL because of how quick he can get open and how often he gets just wide open. And this is a guy, again, just with those quick feet. You'd love to have him on your team, and just a guy that, especially on those little third and short plays, the quarterback can hit him real quick and boom, big play possibly. Another guy here that we didn't really talk about with Vita Vea is just how strong his hands are. That's what continues to impress me with him. He just will throw guys to the side. We talk about it with like Quentin Nelson, who we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, of how strong he is and just how much he just destroys people. Vea does some of that same stuff just on the other side, where I saw one play where he had to run stuff and blocker had him just perfect, had him centered, and all of a sudden Vea just picks him up, throws him to the side, tackles the running back. Just seems so simple to him.
Yeah, he's incredibly strong and athletic for that size, and I am coming around on him. He's going to have to work to do some conditioning, but a big fan. Anyone else have some wrapping up comments on this game?
Not on this game, but I just have something that I just got texted from a source that actually is relevant to this podcast.
Okay. Breaking news.
From USC, Ronald Jones, he's expected to declare for the NFL draft.
Not surprising.
Nothing official, but that's just where all the talk is, that he seems to be leaning, and it'll probably be official within the next few hours to day or two, whenever he decides to officially announce it.
Well, there you go. A couple names to watch on that Penn State side as well. We didn't talk about them that much, but Marcus Allen and Christian Campbell, I believe both are at the Senior Bowl, so definitely worth watching going forward. And now back on to another back-to-back Big Ten winners. Wisconsin defeating Miami 34-24, snapping off that turnover chain. I loved the Wisconsin head coach, talking a hard time about that Wisconsin turnover chain. My curse word, so I'm not going to get in there. But Jonathan Taylor, man, great game from him at the running back position. I think he broke the all-time freshman rushing yard record. Hornibrook, Fumagalli, Edwards, that offense moved the ball well. Defense played great. You got Dooley, Edwards, Jacob, and Nelson, good players. In Miami, they started off strong. That first quarter, they dominated. But then Wisconsin, that run game, just pushing them. And Rozier, not a great quarterback. And that Miami defense, they seem like they're a year off yet. Braxton Berrios, he's solid, but a slot receiver. I don't really love him, especially when you already have Carlos Henderson on the team. And a lot of those good defensive players on Miami are a year away still. Those linebackers a year away. We'll see if Michael Jackson declares. He's kind of a cornerback that could rise depending on how he tests. And I saw a lot. I really, really like what I see from number 99 on their defensive line, their edge rusher, Joseph Jackson. But again, a sophomore, a year away, and a guy that we can just put a star next to him and see where he is at this point next season.
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. I think basically Miami in general, they're just a year away. They're still working on coming back completely from where they were at. A lot of talent, a year away. I liked a lot of potential that I saw from their players. Take that next step. Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor, man, I enjoyed watching him. But when it comes to NFL, though, there's going to be talk about that Wisconsin running back history. And Hornibrook, left-handed, he can make some throws, but he's not an NFL quarterback. Fumagalli, I like him a lot. I think he's a lot better than even people think. TJ Edwards, he's another guy that I love. I wish he was coming out, but from everything I've heard, he is returning as well.
Yeah.
This was a fun game to watch. I think it would have been a little bit more competitive if, say, this was Miami's team next year versus this year's Wisconsin team.
Miami was missing their best two weapons from the season as well.
Yeah, so Miami, they just didn't seem there yet. So
I was a little shocked. If you would have told me that Alex Hornibrook would have 4 touchdowns, go 23 of 34 for 258 yards, I would have thought Fumagalli would have been a big part of that. But it looked like Miami really worked to shut him down and just pretty much say anybody else but him in the passing game beat us. And kudos to Hornibrook for finding him and doing well with that. I think this is one of the best games I've seen him play. Yeah. I agree he's not NFL caliber, but just his ability to go through his reads, because I've seen, especially that Ohio State game, I just saw him really lean upon Fumagalli. Like he just would throw it to him anytime he felt any kind of pressure. And it didn't work, obviously, since they lost that game. So good to see him kind of mixing it up a little bit, showing a little bit more actual quarterback ability to really move the ball around to a lot of different targets. But again, just Fumagalli, I thought he would be a bigger part of this game. And he's a good tight end, don't get me wrong. He's just not always my favorite kind of tight end. I like those quicker tight ends. That's why I love Mark Andrews. That's why I loved Ingram last year. I love those guys that are just huge matchup nightmares. And not that Fumagalli's not a matchup difficulty. I just think those other two are bigger matchup nightmares than what I think Fumagalli's going to be for the NFL.
Yeah, I hear you. He's more of an inline guy, which I think that's what Jake Butt will be as well. So probably not a guy the Broncos are looking at, but you never know. And there's rumors that Nick Nelson, cornerback for Wisconsin, is going to come out as well. I watched him particularly, and I thought he had a pretty good game. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, he's one of those guys that, depending on how he does the combine and all this post-draft stuff, he could rise up boards. Transfer from Hawaii. Good player. Yeah, I think he's a good player. So one to definitely watch out for. I don't remember a Wisconsin cornerback coming out in a while, but he's one that stands out, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's taken in day 2 in the NFL draft. Maybe even rise depending on his combine. But right now, day 2 feels like a pretty safe projection. You think so as well, Eric?
He declared, one reason why he declared is that he was hearing round 2, round 3 talk with a chance to rise up to higher up into the round 2. So that's definitely about where he is. I haven't watched him personally. That's just things that I've heard.
Yeah, good size for that cornerback position. Not so much the lengthwise, but he's very squat, very sturdy, and good tackler on that side. So fun guy to watch going forward. And finally, the last game we're going to talk about, unless you guys have any ones to stick out, the last Big Six bowl game, or the New Year's Six, as I like to call it. UCF defeats Auburn to go undefeated on the season, and 34-27 in the Peach Bowl. UCF, I would have lost money on this game. I definitely would have picked the Auburn Tigers win this game. I think Vegas had them at 11 points, 9 points, but Scott Frost and his staff, they took it to an SEC team that played pretty well this season. I mean, the team that beat Alabama and beat them. They very fun to watch them. Mackenzie Milton had a good game for him, not only throwing the football, but rushing it as well. Had 3 total touchdowns. Traquan Smith and Jordan Akers are 2 guys that they have. And then unfortunately, Scott Frost is leaving for them, but I think both probably end up having some NFL impact. And Mike Hughes, I think he's going to declare early. He had some big plays in the return game and a little bit undersized, but a good corner. And Shaquem Griffin, I'll leave that to one of you guys to talk a little bit more about that. Auburn, disappointing. Jarrett Stidham, he showed some flashes, but I thought he held on to the ball too long, and the game just kind of got away from him. Auburn's better when Stidham's throwing less than 35 passes, and they had him up to 43, so it wasn't working, and that's because UCF did a great job stopping the run. Kerryon Johnson only had 71 total yards, 3.2 average, not great. And for having a team that's so predicated on the run, it's a big deal. Braden Smith had an okay game. Austin Golson was, I think, beaten pretty soundly at the left tackle spot. So Carlton Davis didn't play, unfortunately, another cornerback that sat out this game that's going to be probably making a switch to the NFL next season. But, yeah, surprising game. UCF, hat tip, good season, undefeated. Sorry didn't get a chance for the playoffs. Would have been interesting to see him in there, but congrats on the undefeated season nonetheless, and maybe we'll get an argument for a smaller school team making it in the future because of UCF's undefeated season.
Kerryon Johnson was the guy that really disappointed me in this one. I saw him a few times really miss some open holes. He kind of more just did the run into the pile. When he had some cutback lanes, he had some opportunities to go make some plays. I just, for a guy that I've been pretty high on, that before this, in our preview episode, I talked about him, that he was a guy that I was really excited to see. And one of his worst games that I've seen. And it's kind of been a little bit of their season, is kind of how he goes, the game goes for them. When he really started breaking out after a few games into the season, all of a sudden Auburn takes off and they start beating number 1 ranked Georgia and then number 1 ranked Alabama. But he kind of got hurt there for a little bit, and he just hasn't quite been that same player that we saw before.
He runs just a little bit too upright for me. I don't know. I think he's a good downhill runner and everything, but I don't think he's super dynamic in terms of his shiftiness and everything. He'll probably be a day 2 pick, but personally like guys like Damian Harris more.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I don't like Johnson at all. I wouldn't touch him before the 4th round.
Yeah. Some people love him, but not everyone who has an opinion is informed.
The thing with him is that going to school, returning to school, or declaring, neither one hurts him. If he returns to school, I don't see him raising his stock higher than where it's at now for some teams, and I don't see it lowering it. And returning, it's just, why risk the injury going back to school when you can go now? So
he's actually declared.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just talking about why it was better for him to declare, because there was no point really to return.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
Shaquem Griffin has an amazing story. I absolutely love the story. I can't remember what it was called. Ambiotic something or another that left it to where his left hand had to be amputated.
Yes.
What he's done in college should be an inspiration. The fact that he's been able to do what he did, and he's been named the UCF Knights MVP, defensive MVP, being able to do that. The fact that he has a shot at the NFL, it's an inspiration for anybody.
It's going to be a movie eventually.
Yeah, it should be. It's just a fantastic story. I like what I saw of Mackenzie Milton. I want to see more next year. I kind of have a soft spot for quarterbacks like him. As for Auburn, Stidham was disappointing, and I think this cements him returning to school. And Braden Smith, I actually liked a little bit of what I saw from this game, but it wasn't enough for me to really change my opinion on him. I still see him as that 4th, 5th round kind of offensive lineman that you take.
All right. And that wraps up the Bowl 6 games, the New Year's. All right. And that wraps up the New Year's 6 bowl games. Do you guys have anything else you want to shout out from this bowl season? Big Ten doing great. Hawkeyes get the win. Go Hawks. Got to get that shout out in there. And I don't know if you guys, did any of you see the game-winning play of the Notre Dame LSU game?
I did not, actually. I didn't get to see the end of that game.
Is that the one?
Oh my gosh, guys, nobody saw that one?
I think I saw it, but I'm trying to remember.
It was like a one-handed catch behind the guy's back.
Yeah.
And then he juked 3 different guys to make the game-winning play. Carl,
I'm sorry.
I'm sending that to you right now. No, it's okay. I just, wow. That's the only thing you can say about it. Wow. Miles Boykin made a great play to win the game against LSU. I'm going to send that to you right now. But, yeah, if you guys don't have anything else about the draft.
No, not about the draft.
But before we get to this next section, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Audible. Actually, let me try that one more time and I'll get a transition there. All right, well, that's enough talk about the bowl games. We'll be recapping the college football championship, obviously. But before we get on to the next section here, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. All right, guys, well, I informed you of this yesterday, and we talked about it, but we're going to do our first part of our all draft eligible team, starting with the offense. And that includes a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end / wide receiver, and offensive weapon. So running back, fullback, tight end / wide receiver, and then 5 offensive linemen. So Eric, we're going to start with you. Your quarterback is
Baker Mayfield.
Oh my gosh, I'm shocked.
I just think overall he's the best playmaker from the quarterback position of the group. I know that we get to build our own line, which would help out Josh Rosen and Darnold figuratively in this scenario. But still, personally, I see him as the best playmaker of the group, so that's why I'm going to go with him.
All right, Carl, quarterback.
Sam Darnold. I do think he'll probably return, but just when I'm projecting, he's the guy that I think is going to end up being the best of this group.
All right, I'll just be different. I'll take Josh Rosen. I think he's my 1A to Darnold being 1B, with Mayfield being a close 3. I like all 3. And just as far as plug and play, especially in an NFL team, I think Rosen's probably very solid. And since I get to build an offensive line, I'm not as worried about his pass rush. His struggles against good pass rush. So I'll take Rosen here to be different and because he's worth a shout out. And I will go back to back on my running backs here. I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley and Darius Geis. Both of the top 2 running backs for me. I feel like Barkley is a better complement. Or Barkley and Geis are both complement each other very, very well. Both can do a lot of different things, but Geis more of a banger, and Barkley can be outside, shotgun runner, wide receiver as well. And they're my top 2 running backs. I don't think that. Obviously you're going to go with Barkley, both of you, I would assume. But for me, they're my top 2 running backs.
And it's hard to ever go against Geis either. That's
try that one more time. Sorry.
Oh, one more time. And it's hard to go against Geis either. He was so fun to watch in his bowl game. He was just throwing guys to the side, and he just runs with such purpose. I love his game. So I'm with you. It's hard to argue with Barkley and Geis being the top 2 guys.
All right, Eric, you got something different? Or are you with us?
I'm going to take Barkley, of course, but I'm not going to take Geis. Instead, I think I'm going to go and take Damian Harris.
Oh, man, you sly dog.
I think Geis is great. I just think that Harris is a little bit more complimentary to Barkley than Geis is. And I like Harris quite a bit. I think right now he sits as my number 4 running back with Mark to go back and watch a couple certain games that I've heard are ones to watch for him. And Geis, again, I think he's great. He is my number 2 back, and he's cemented there. But just looking at complimentary to Barkley, I just think Harris compliments better, as I said.
All right. I love it. That's a good pick. I like Damian Harris a lot. Eric, we got back-to-back wide receivers here. So start us off. 2 wide receivers.
Well, first off, I don't think there's any question about this. Calvin Ridley. He's the best wide receiver there is in this group. The other one, not sure on the other one. Definitely want to get somebody who's complimentary to him. Thinking between a couple different players. I think I'm going to go with Christian Kirk. I like what I've seen out of him a lot, and I think he complements him pretty well. And then with that offensive weapon spot, you still have that person that can go.
I have a tight end wide receiver spot and a running back, fullback, tight end wide receiver spot.
So you still have places that you can go and complement even more. And I think those two, you just get somewhat complementary skill sets.
All right, back-to-back wide receivers, Carl.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley. I said in my preview episode that he is my number 1 wide receiver in this draft. So I can't go against that, and nothing in the bowl game made me change my mind on that. Then the next guy, I feel like I'm copying here, but I said Christian Kirk as well. That's who I have on my list, and just such a dynamic player. Again, I love those dynamic guys that can just get open in a hurry. They can do a lot of different things on the field. You can have them go deep. You can have them run them short. I love that skill set. So it's hard for me to argue with that.
I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley as well for my first guy. He's more of that 1B type option where you can play inside, outside, good route runner, decent long speed and tracking. But for my second wide receiver, I'm going to go with my favorite catch point, catch radius guy in Auden Tate, 6'5", 230-pound wide receiver from Florida State. He's had some injury issues, and I know Florida State didn't throw the ball the best this year, but I really like what I see from Auden Tate. He has the ability to high point the football very well, really strong hands, enough fluidity in his routes where he can get separation too, add good size. And as far as the ability in the red zone, he's got some tremendous skill sets to pluck the ball out of the air. So I'm going to go with more of a bigger possession guy to complement Ridley there at that second wide receiver spot and go with Auden Tate. We'll see if he declares, but he's one that I think could rise up the boards if he does come out. Tight end, and then I have a tight end / wide receiver. My tight end, I'm going to go with Mark Andrews, I think that he is the best wide receiver in this class, or best tight end in this class. He's listed as a wide receiver on Oklahoma's depth chart, but he's going to play tight end at the next level. 6'5", 250 plus, great athlete, runs good routes, and use him more in the pass game against Georgia. But, you got Roquan Smith and some athletic linebackers that can do that. But I love Mark Andrews, good player. And for my tight end / wide receiver, you guys already listed him. I just have this already written out, but I have Christian Kirk listed there. He'd come in as the wide receiver 3 for me in this set. Obviously can rotate with Tate depending on what you want to do there, but he's not a size guy. He's a speed guy. Not the best route runner right that now, but a dynamic athlete and going to add a big boost to the return game as well. So my receiving weapons I have there, Calvin Ridley, Auden Tate, and then tight end, Mark Andrews, tight end / wide receiver, I go with Christian Kirk. And then finally, also, before we get to the offensive line, got that all-around offensive weapon guy. My favorite all-around offensive weapon guy in this entire class has got to be Jalen Samuels of NC State. He's played running back. He's played wide receiver. He's played tailback. He's played in the Wildcat. He's played everything, and I absolutely love his skill set. You can play him at fullback. I think that's probably where he'll play a decent amount at the next level, but just so versatile and can be used in a variety of ways. And I'm really hoping that he doesn't go to the Patriots or a team with a good smart quarterback / offensive coordinator, because he is a mismatch weapon, and I love his game.
All right, well, starting with tight end, again, I've already said on this show many times, I love Mark Andrews. I have a crush on him. I've written many love letters to him, so he's got to be in there. And looking at that wide receiver tight end position, I guess just kind of have that other side complementary piece for him. I would have to go with Hayden Hurst, just that 6'6" frame, 250 pounds, just that guy that can go up there and get that football. Like I said, I think he's just such a great compliment to Mark Andrews, who's more of that speed guy, quick guy, get down the seam kind of guy. And I love that kind of combination for an NFL team. And then looking at my running back, fullback, tight end, wide receiver, the guy that I just see as that all-around dynamic weapon, it's got to be, let me think here for a second.
Can be any of those positions specifically.
I know. I'll go Damian Harris.
Oh, okay, cool.
Not that I don't know, receiving-wise, he's not the guy that I'm thinking, hey, this guy's going to go in there and be this 50, 60 catch kind of guy. But again, just that dynamic playmaker that you can have go out wide, you can have run between the tackles. I love his game. After watching this bowl game especially, just seeing this guy's quickness to the hole, oh my goodness. Like I said, I just had so many flashbacks to Clinton Portis. And that guy was just so dynamic in this zone blocking scheme. And yeah, I love him. All
right, Eric, tight end / wide receiver, and then all-around offensive weapon.
I'm going to do a different order. With my all-around offensive weapon, I'm going to go Myles Gaskin. I don't know, more I watch him, more I like him. I like Jalen Samuels as well, as you touched on, is that he's done everything. But with the style of team that I'm building in my mind here, Myles Gaskin just fits it better. For my tight end wide receiver, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz. I think he's vastly underrated, and I think he's probably a top 3 tight end in this class. He's that guy who you can do whatever you want with, inline, out wide, slot, wherever. You can move him around. He's big. He's quick for being as big as he is. And then Dallas Goedert.
You did it.
Hey.
You nailed it.
He's a small school prospect, but his talent is off the charts. South Dakota State. He is great size. I think he's like 6'5" and 260 pounds or something like that, and he's extremely athletic. He's a freak athlete for his size. Just, again, it's with what I want. I like Mark Andrews. I like Hayden Hurst. I like Troy Fumagalli. I was debating between all 3 of those guys. There's something about him that just I gravitate to. I want him. I understand that he played at a small school. I think he's going to be great at the NFL level anyways. I don't see any issues with him transitioning. I think he will come in and make a pretty good impact right away.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Dallas Goedert's one I want to see test first, but all indication is he's going to be a freak athlete, and he's definitely up there. And I like Dalton Schultz, but I'll be honest, when I've watched Stanford, it's been their sophomore tight end that's stood out the most to me. Caden Smith, I really like his skill set as well. Of course, they use 2 tight ends pretty effectively there at Stanford.
I don't
David Shaw does
disagree.
a good job.
I think that sophomore is a little bit better, but I like Dalton Schultz a lot too.
Yeah. Caden Smith or Noah Fant, tight end 1 next year. We'll see. All right, Eric. Well, to move this along, one last turnaround for all of us. The entire offensive line.
I'm going first?
Yes, unless you'd want me to go first. We can punt to myself.
Doesn't matter.
Give you a chance to fill it out if you want, because I have mine in front of me.
All right. For left tackle, I think I'm going to go with Connor Williams. I think he's got the best upside as a pure right tackle there is.
Left tackle?
Left tackle. For right tackle, I think I'm going to go with Orlando Brown, just for kind of that big presence that you want, mean, nasty. I think he's athletic enough for what I'm imagining here for this team. And if I want to change it up, I can with him. I don't think he's first round really, but I still like what I see a lot. And of other potential right tackles that I have, I think he's the best pure right tackle prospect there is, which is obviously why I'm going to go with that way. Then for my guards, I'm going to go with Will Hernandez and Quentin Nelson. These are my top two guards, and just making the best line I can that have enough strength and athleticism to do what I want with this team. Quick, big, strong. And then for center,
top listed guys that are pretty well known are Frank Ragnow of Arkansas, Mason Cole of Michigan, or Billy Price of Ohio State, unless you're moving a guy inside, which is possible. Then you got a guy like Sean Welsh, and James Daniels from Iowa might declare. Some talk that he's a day two guy.
I was actually thinking about basically everybody you named, but I think I'm going to go with Frank Ragnow. I like what he brings. Again, he's a guy who, if I have to, I can put him outside at guard, but I think he is better at center for the NFL game. That rounds out my offensive line. I just think it's versatile enough to do multiple things, and they fit with kind of what I want to do and what I want up front for my offensive line.
Awesome. All right, Carl, your offensive line.
Well, I think all of us are going to have pretty similar guys just because it's pretty well known who some of these top guys are. Connor Williams, hard to go against him. He's one of those few guys that really could be top 10 pick tackle. Has shown really well. A little bit down this year, but something that could be blamed more on injuries. Quentin Nelson, another guy that I write love letters to. So I got to have him on my list. I was thinking about Will Hernandez, but I feel like I got to be a little bit different just to get a few more names out there for everybody. And so a guy that showed up here in the college football playoffs, Isaiah Wynn. We didn't really talk about him a whole lot, but he plays tackle, but he'll be a guard at the NFL level. But again, just that guy that has versatility. You could maybe get away with him out at tackle. I don't know exactly arm length what we're looking at. He is pretty small. He's 6'2". But again, just a guy who does well as a run blocker, as we've seen. I mean, what do they just run for? How many yards? Oh my goodness.
Like 300.
Yeah, it was crazy. And they've been doing it all year. They just run over people. And Isaiah Wynn is a big part of that. They love to run behind him. And then as a pass blocker, again, he's a very refined guy at the position. He's very dependable. And I feel like he's one of those great pieces that you just, wherever your biggest hole is on the offensive line, especially in the middle, you pick him there, you put him there. And he does have a little bit of ability, if you absolutely needed him to maybe play some tackle. Again, he's a little bit small for the position, but a guy I really like. And then Billy Price for the center position, another guy that just showed up well in the bowl games. I mean, he dominates his line of the scrimmage. He does well in pass protection. I love his game. And again, versatility. I love guys that have a lot of that versatility. And so I would put him there. And then tackle position, I was trying to think. Orlando Brown for a right tackle, again, that's the guy I really like. But Martinez Rankin, just because he has a little bit more versatility to play left or right and has shown well. He's played some really tough competition there in the SEC, and he's held his own against them. I just love his game.
All right, well, I have a little bit of combination of all your guys' stuff. We all have Connor Williams at left tackle, and we all have Quentin Nelson at guard, so left guard there. So can't disagree. Top two offensive linemen for me in this class. After that, my center is going to be Billy Price. He can play guard as well, but I don't think he has the length to be great there. But at center, I mean, I really like what I see from him. He really controls the point of attack, very technical, moves well. For my guard, actually, I'm going to go with Martinez Rankin. I'm going to kick him inside. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Martinez Rankin, I think, is a guy who can play all five positions on the offensive line. He's taken snaps at center. He can play both guards. Continue to get stronger, but huge upside all across the line, and I want to get him in there. And I would take him before Hernandez at guard. I think Hernandez is probably a better guard day one, but I like the upside of Martinez Rankin overall. Then right tackle, nobody said him. I know we are, I think, not as high on him as many of the draft media are, or at least were. I feel like some of them are starting to come down there. But Mike McGlinchey, I'm going to go right tackle. He played really good at right tackle when Ronnie Stanley was there. And just a solid pass blocker, technical guy. And you're going to get a lot of security and, just safety at that right tackle position taking him.
He's got a very high floor.
Elite upside guy? No. Potentially more of a Ricky Wagner, but I'm okay with that at the right tackle position. So, yeah, that'll wrap up my unit. Eric, you finished with Mayfield, Barkley, Harris, Ridley, Christian Kirk, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, Myles Gaskin. Across the line was Williams, Nelson, Ragnow, Hernandez, and Orlando Brown. Carl, Darnold, Barkley, Geis, Ridley, Kirk, Andrews, Hayden Hurst, Damian Harris, Connor Williams, Quentin Nelson, Billy Price, Isaiah Wynn, and Martinez Rankin. And then for myself, I had Josh Rosen, just to be different at the quarterback position. I like all three. Saquon Barkley, Darius Geis, Calvin Ridley, Auden Tate, a little different there. Mark Andrews, Christian Kirk, Jalen Samuels. Then for the offensive line, Connor Williams, Quentin Nelson, Billy Price, Martinez Rankin, and Mike McGlinchey. All right, well, that will wrap up this week's episode of the Huddle Up 2018 NFL Draft Podcast. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, Eric on Twitter at Erick Trickel, and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of scout.com and CBS Sports Digital, to find ours and our co-writers' latest articles, not just related to the draft, but all things pertaining to your Denver Broncos. What are you guys working on this week that listeners should look forward to?
I just have a bunch of different draft stuff in the works. Nothing real concrete down, just a bunch of different ideas that I'm playing with. And it'll probably be either late this week or early next week that some of it starts going up.
And what about you, Carl? You starting to do some of those prospects that we sorted out?
Yeah, that's my next big project, is getting a few of those knocked out here in the next couple weeks and really getting into this. It's going to be rapid fire for all you fans out there that love the draft. We're going to be bringing you lots and lots of content and lots of information on each of these prospects. So it's going to be fun.
Yep, there's multiple of us doing it, and our goal is to bring you 300 scouting reports this year.
Huh.
Over the last 2 years, I've done 300 by myself. So I believe with those of us who are partaking that it is extremely possible for us to break that 300 mark.
Lofty goals, but we will make sure that we are going to try to do that. And we are also going to do our best to bring you this draft podcast at least once a week from now until after the NFL draft. I mean, that's our goal. You can follow the Huddle Up Podcast by subscribing to us on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and reach out to us, as we love interacting with you listeners. For Carl Dumler and Erick Trickel, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of the Huddle Up Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos and go draft.
Mile High Huddle.